I'm Dr. Swanee Jett, and I've had a passion for public health for over 30 years. Now I'm in a position to affect change, and these are the critical conversations about health and our community, with people who can help me make those changes. Good morning. Welcome to CEO Live Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Swanee Jett. And today we're going to have an intriguing conversation about AMPT. And I have my guest on the set. Welcome to the set, Mr. Dave Christopher.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, so, inquiring minds want to know, you came from Gary.
Yep. GI till I die.
I know what it looked like now.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your background.
From the beginning?
From the beginning, man. I want to know from the beginning.
Grew up in Gary, Indiana. It's like a GI till I die. But Gary, the west side of Gary, went to Gary West Side High School. Grew up in Concord Commons Village, CCV, as we called it back then. To parents that were disabled, my mother had undiagnosed Parkinson's when I was a kid. Spent a lot of time in bed. We didn't know what it was because poor health care is what it is. My father was 48 years old when I was born, had stomach cancer, diabetes, and a bad back surgery that caused him to walk bent over. I'm the youngest of 5 boys, 3 girls.
Now, first of all, let's back up.
Yeah.
5 boys and 3 girls. That was a rough household.
It's a lot of, yeah. Well, I slept head to toe in a twin bed with my brother. My brother's a year older than me. That's how we rolled, yeah.
And so where were you at in the pecking order? Were you at the middle or the end?
I was at the very end. I'm the youngest.
Okay, so you're the youngest, so you got the crumbs on the table.
You know what's interesting? You say that. Actually, no. I did for the most part, but you would think in most families where the baby gets treated as the baby.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't like that.
Oh.
And it was because that's not how I ever wanted it.
Okay.
I tell the story a lot of times. When I had my first birthday party, that was my birthday party as an adult, because my brother's birthday and my birthday were close together. So his was in March, mine was in April, and so we couldn't do both. So we had to decide what we were going to do, and so it was usually because his was first, and then we usually do his birthday, and then after that, we just say happy birthday on my day. And it was interesting. It was cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would have been rough for me.
It was, yeah. Man, I'm telling you, my parents did a really great job of getting us to understand the stuff that all those things. If they were really good about if we were going to get anything for Christmas, they would let us know. They would tell us. So we didn't have expectations like anything for that Christmas. And if January came around, they could get something, they got something. But I think their level-headedness and the willingness to let us be a part of what was going on, if the lights were going to be turned off, make sure you iron what you need to iron. But they were really, so it was never any.
They communicated very well.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was crazy how we just, and so when I tell stories like that, people go, oh, I was like, no, I don't remember it being sad. It was because I understood, I knew that they taught me how to control my environment. So if the lights were going out, then I knew I needed to do this. If water was going to be turned off, I knew I needed to fill the bathtub up. And I grew up like that, always seeking the knowledge to know how to deal with the situation and never panicking about anything.
All right. So let's move forward. Tell me about the years growing up.
Oh, man.
And then a little bit about high school, because I just couldn't imagine, 7 siblings. Remember, I had 2, and I was the oldest, so I couldn't imagine.
That wasn't the biggest part. So our family, until this day, man, we're just like that. We were never like that, that sibling rival. It was never that. Our situations were what was around us, the gun violence because we lived in the projects. We lived in Concord Village, so there were other projects like Terrytown and Door Miller and Ivanhoe and all these other, projects that were competing. They had the gangs and stuff. So that was the thing that we really had to deal with.
So what gangs were there?
Okay, I want to say but there was each neighborhood, each project had their own. And
So I just assumed like Black Gangster Disciple, El Rookins,
the farmers,
the Vice Lords,
the-
those were the main ones I knew. I knew it was Latin Kings. MS-13 came later, but I was trying to figure out so the audience would know. The projects isn't in comparison to Chicago and Cabrini Green and
it was the same stuff. I just won't speak on that. But I mean,
Okay.
it was the same. It was the same. It was the same thing. It was those same folks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
but that's not something I speak on. But
Right.
but yeah. So I mean, you just had that. And so like you had the space that you were safest in,
Right.
and then they had the space they were safest in.
What I want to put in context the environment, so it wasn't an easy
Oh
environment
no, by no means.
to grow up in.
Nah. But it was interesting. Like I said, going back to my parents, like it wasn't. It was like like the example, like another example. My mother and father being really calm about stuff is when shooting started, they would like holler in the room, get on the floor,
Okay.
but not like in a panicky way. It was like get on the floor, and when the shooting stopped, you can get off the floor.
Right.
You didn't come like I couldn't play football in high school when it got to where it got dark before a certain time because I'd be coming home in the dark and I had to walk. The school, went to West Side High School, and the school was close to not Ivanhoe, but Dormiller and some other stuff. Like so, I had to go through some other areas to get to my house. And so the thing was, when you crossed, we lived like right at the alley, and so it was 17th Avenue and 18th Avenue. 18th was where Concord started. So anybody crossing that alley, there was no doubt they lived in Concord.
Okay.
And so that got dangerous. As a matter of fact, one night we got woke up by the police because some kids had come from a concert at the high school. They crossed that alley, and 3 dudes, because they knocked on the back door. It was like, hey, we need to search your backyard because we believe there's some people dead or injured in your backyard. And literally was that. Like it was a guy under our window that had got shot. Another guy was under my parents' window, and another guy was out in the middle of the yard. Because as soon as they crossed that alley, fellowship started like unloading, right? Because you knew that's where people were going.
Right.
And so that was probably the toughest thing. But I mean, even that though really didn't. It was like you knew it, and but you didn't. I mean, it's hard to explain. You knew it, but you weren't in fear of it. Like you weren't.
Right. I often say, when you're in that type of environment, you become desensitized.
Yeah.
To it after a while. When you see blood, you get used to seeing blood. When you hear gunshots, you get used to hearing gunshots. And I put it in the context of being at war, because I served in Iraq, and so after a while, I got used to hearing that sound, even though it was familiar growing up in Chicago, but I had tuned out for some years because I was that far removed. But after a couple of weeks, hearing bombs going off, oh, this is normal.
Yeah.
So you become
I mean,
sensitive.
So, I mean, yeah. I just never, like I said. I mean, it was kind of, you had a choice: either, be worried and scared and upset every day, or not.
Right.
And so, it was easier to just not be. And I don't know that I remember even like, because like I remember like even in school, in elementary school, getting jumped on the playground in elementary school because all the cats that was from my neighborhood had left. They were like somewhere else, and I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
And I was left behind. Next thing I know, I'm under a pile of dudes just being pummeled. You know what I'm saying? But even that, like I left, went home.
I'd have called my brothers.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, my sisters.
Yeah. Well, see, what's interesting you say that is that the one thing I was really aware of, because my family had a reputation in the city, was being careful about calling my family.
Okay.
Because
I understand.
You know what I'm saying? Because that could get real super ugly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This episode of CEO Live Talks is brought to you by Park National Bank. Pay with confidence. Your Park debit card is the fast, safe, smart way to pay this holiday season. Get more details online at parknationalbank.com.
If you or someone you love is considering therapy, contact the professionals at Park Duval Community Health Centers today.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here. Communities in our name.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
You're always on time.
Because we serve the community.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
Park Duval Community Health Center, providing quality health care, one person, one family, one neighborhood at a time.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here for them.
Park Duval Community Health is right here for your children's primary care. At Park Duval Community Health Center, our team of highly dedicated pediatric physicians administer state-of-the-art care right here, every day. Because serving the community is more than part of our name, it's our mission. Park Duval Community Health Center, providing quality health care, one person, one family, one neighborhood at a time.
At Park Duval, we offer a variety of services for behavioral health needs, such as therapy, medication management, case management, and we also have community health workers. Here at Park Duval Community Health Center, in our behavioral health department, we provide you with the tools to help improve your life and your mental health. If you or someone you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide, please don't hesitate to give the Suicide Prevention Hotline a call. This could save your life or someone else's life.
So, you went to high school, played sports.
No, I
Didn't play.
Tried. Wanted to, could not because, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, but I went into the Air Force. And well, so between that and Air Force was, you know, some other things that I did, you know, that.
What made you go into the Air Force?
Because I was literally told, like, you're gonna go to the Air. Because I was not the model student, dude. I mean, you know.
All right. so you had to be. So you doing something.
Yeah, it was kind of, you know,
getting out of the house.
You hear people. It wasn't even my parents. It was actually the counselor, man. Because my parents. The thing about my parents, like I said, they were both disabled, so they never actually even went to my schools. Usually, if anybody had to go to school, if anything happened and somebody had to go to school, it was my sisters or somebody, like one of my sisters would go, because my brothers at that point was out of school. My other brother was too young. But no, I was told by my counselor, you know, when you hear people say that, it's like either go into the military or you end up dead or in jail.
Right.
That she said that to me.
Right.
Like, there was no question. I didn't even know anything about college or how to go to college. Like, you know, like,
You didn't know nothing.
I knew nothing about that because that's not what they talked to me about. They were like, this dude ain't finna do nothing, so you need to go out to the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. That didn't go well.
That didn't go well.
Not initially. Not initially, man. The basic training, I'm trying to fight the drill instructor, dog.
That don't go well.
Right,
you can't fight the drill instructor in basic training.
Off the rip, it was crazy. Because I'm like,
wow.
you know, coming from where I came from, like, don't talk to me crazy.
Can't, well, you know, that people don't understand that. When you join the military, people yell and scream, they cuss you out.
You can't be doing that.
And when you come from urban environment, from the streets, you can't talk to people crazy.
It was
right.
It was hilarious, man. It was hilarious to me because I just remember thinking to this dude, what are you, nuts? Like, why are you raising your voice to me, man? Because I thought to myself, I remember like when it happened, I remember thinking to myself, dude, I just go back home. I ain't got no problem with that.
Right.
Like, but you gonna get out of my face.
Right.
So
I had a problem with that in coaching when I played football, so I understand.
Yeah,
I wanted to get in a coach one time for yesterday. Probably not a good idea to bunk a coach out.
As you can tell, to this day, I still think that's funny, man. I think that dude, he had no clue who he was. Like,
Right. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not. So, what was your rank? And what did you end up?
So I left the military as a staff sergeant. I should have left as a tech sergeant, but again, I stayed in trouble.
Okay.
I mean, so like I actually got locked up. I got demoted for some stuff, and it was a lot. It was it was by grace of God that I got to.
Well, I appreciate you serving.
Yeah,
I'm still in the reserves.
Yeah, okay.
Air Force.
Yeah, I did a couple years in the reserves after I got out, but after I did 11 and a half years total, and like 2 years in the reserve. But yeah, I took the early out, man, because I kept getting I mean, that was crazy. I kept getting in trouble for like, and I just, not to go too far into this, but like, for drinking and driving, for for selling drugs, for
Right.
like getting in fights, like just, I mean.
But it's easy to do. One of the things that we don't, and we don't get counsel for this.
Yeah.
When you come from some tough environments, and now you're trying to transition to the regular world, well, you know what didn't leave behind, right?
Right.
All the stuff that you did in those environments,
Yeah.
right? So you need that time to, convert, get yourself away from that. It took me to college, right? Because I was always fighting in college,
Yeah.
right? I probably was reckless, but if people said something that I did not like, my first initial thought was to punch them in the mouth.
Dude, I was
So
bad.
that probably wasn't a good idea, but
Yeah, I don't want to get too far in that, man,
Yeah.
but I was bad about like just grabbing somebody.
yeah, I understand that. So what, and that, for me, there was an incident that actually told me I need to pump my brakes and go in a different direction. What made you make that transition? Because for everybody that, we have a lot of youth in the street,
Yeah.
right? And they caught up in life and they want to make that transition to the other side. But, I don't want to say it's almost like health related, like something has to happen traumatic.
Yeah.
But something does have to occur in your mind to say, I can't do this no more.
I mean, there was a couple of those times. Like, so when because mine would help me. I got out of the military and was selling drugs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'd got to where I decided, okay, I don't need to be doing this. When I sat with a couple one night when they smoked themselves out, if you know them, they smoked themselves out, and I'm like looking at these people and I remember going home and thinking, dude, I'm killing people. Like, I'm literally killing people.
Right.
Like, I can't keep doing this. And so I went back and forth thinking, okay, I'm gonna flush this stuff. I'm flushing. And I finally did. I caught all kinds of from my people.
Yeah.
They was like,
Yeah.
dude, are you nuts? Like,
what did you do?
yeah.
Why and why?
Yeah.
And why?
So I that was sort of the beginning of like my conscience coming to the forefront, which I felt like I always had that because my father's preacher, my grandfather, like I always had good family. So I think when people say like, your parents did this, no, my parents did the best they could do, and like they didn't, as they say, they didn't raise me like that.
Right.
But it was like that's what I knew because so. That was sort of the beginning of it, but then I still I really couldn't escape it. And so I ended up leaving. At the time I was living in Indianapolis, ended up leaving and moving to Atlanta, which was, again, a dumb move, right?
But wasn't the best situation.
It wasn't, no, because I started out good on the good side of town with this young lady and like everything was good, but my spirit had me seeking out like, and all it takes is to go to the barbershop. Right. And once you're in the barbershop, you're connected to the community. And so now I'm in Southwest Atlanta, I'm in the SWATs. And I'm right back where I was. And what I didn't have a handle on, because the part that I skipped is like when I was in the military, I got locked up because I got a DUI. And I got locked up. And when I look back at it now, I realized that, and I'm 21 years clean and sober now.
Okay.
I realized, thank you.
Yeah.
I realized that all of those things that I did, because I started drinking when I was 13, getting high when I was 13.
Yeah.
And all those things that I did all that time, all the way even through the military, while I was still in the military, doing all those things, I connected them all back to that.
Oh, wow.
I connected them, everyone. If I looked at like everything that I did, so when I was in Indianapolis, lost my house, lost my car, divorce, all the stuff. Like everything, I tell people, everything you could possibly do wrong, I did it. Everything you can mess up, I messed it up. And so then I was like, so I'm gonna bail. I'm going because some stuff was going down, and people were starting to tell on people.
Right.
And I'm like, okay,
I got that scenario.
I'm headed. I'm going to Atlanta. I go to Atlanta. I get down there. I'm doing good. I get right back into that same move. I ended up in. I don't know if you recently where they talked about the Red Dogs, right? Like the young man that got killed, right? And look, they were regularly going past my door, like, because I had just gotten back into it, and so I'm living in a community where this is the daily activity, and I don't know, man. It was like I kept trying to get out of it, and I remember like so at the time I was divorced and my son was young. He was still like 7 or 8 or whatever, and me and his mother had made an agreement that when he turned 10, that I would get custody of him. And I had him with me in Atlanta when he was 10, and I'm like ready to put him in school. She hits me up, was like, hey, when are you bringing Dave home? Dave Jr. And I was like, I'm not, because we agreed. She's like, nah, if you were closer, maybe. But like this far away, no. So she came and got him. Wow. And at that point, like when I had him, I had stopped drinking.
Okay.
And because I was trying to be a good dad. So I stopped drinking, and she came and got him. I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Rock bottom. I was like, I tell people that's like one of the worst days of my life. But when she said, like, if you were closer, then maybe. So I just got promoted to senior project manager for the company I was working for. And they asked me, is there anything else you can do? And I said, yeah. I said, you can move me closer. I need to be closer to my son. And that was the day before, and the next day, because my boss was actually in Texas, she called me up and she's like, is Louisville, Kentucky close enough? And I was like, yeah. Mm. I mean, I ain't know really much about Louisville, Kentucky, but I'm like, it's closer than Atlanta.
Right.
So I packed my little stuff up, man, came up here. And I remember I got into this apartment. Now, mind you, I told you I had messed everything up. So my credit, all my stuff was messed up. There was a deacon, I still to this day haven't met this dude. It was a deacon from Southeast Christian who had an apartment for rent. And sight unseen, this dude rented that apartment to me over literally, like I called him, I talked to him on the phone, he faxed me an application, I told him what my situation was, he said, don't worry about it. Got the apartment, I got there, and there was a dude waiting there for me when I got there. And this dude, you would think I was like the president of the United States. This dude was like, hey, so, and I can remember the dude's name. He's like, he told me to make sure that everything was good, that you had everything you needed, like da-da-da. I'm like, what's going on?
Right.
Like, why
are you being pumped?
Yeah, right. No, seriously. I was like, something's up, right? It was like, why are you like paying this much attention to detail?
Right.
And why you, because I mean, remember, I'm the dude with bad credit and all the stuff wrong, right? So I still didn't have my son at the time. And I remember walking out of the apartment like one day, on my way somewhere, and I heard a voice that said, you can't raise your son like that. And it was so clear, it's like as clear as you and me talking right now. It was that clear that I turned around to see who it was and who they were talking to, because I was like, who are you talking to?
Yeah. The spirit talking to you. You're like, what's going on?
It was clear. And I turned around, I'm looking, I don't see nobody. And just as I turned back around, a girl was walking out of this apartment across the street. And for whatever reason, I was compelled to go ask her, hey, what church do you go to? Okay. And I walked up to her, and she's like,
right. Like, nobody asks somebody, just random questions.
And it just so happens that where I was standing in the street talking to her, she pointed to Canaan Christian Baptist Church.
Okay.
Like it was like right there. She's like, but she said, she went to Southeast. She said, I go to Southeast Christian, but there's a church right there. And so the church was right there. The middle school was like right next to it.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that area.
Yeah,
like Canaan and Myers, I think Myers Middle School, which is the school my son ended up going. So somehow I got placed in this spot within walking distance of a church and walking distance of a school.
So, because that's Hikes Lane. So it used to be, where did Kenny used to be? Because they used to be Southeast Christian Church.
Yes. Yep, it did. Yeah.
And then Southeast Christian moved to Blankenbaker, so out that way. So I remember.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the beginning. I mean, if you talk about like what was the thing, it was at that moment in that time, and that my mother passed away shortly after I moved, after I got here. Like not even like it wasn't even a month, and I went home for the funeral, and my ex-wife's mother convinced my ex-wife to let my son come live with me.
Wow.
He at that time he was 11 years old. He now runs our music academy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The depression part, I would get up only because I knew I had to. I'm always having to do stuff for other people, and I can't, who's helping me? Therapy has improved my life by 95%. Every parent, every child, just everyone, just in general, needs some type of therapy, and they should seek it if they feel the need. When I'm approached or have something happen to me, I feel the emotions for everything, but then I have to set it free because it'll do something to me. So I just, like I said, I feel it. not for long, and then I set it free. That's how I've been able to cope with my situations. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. But yeah, once I couldn't take it anymore, and I reached out for help, and I got it.
If you or someone you love is considering therapy, contact the professionals at Park Duval Community Health Centers today.
This episode of CEO Live Talks is brought to you by Park National Bank. Pay with confidence. Your Park debit card is the fast, safe, smart way to pay this holiday season. Get more details online at parknationalbank.com.
If you or someone you love is considering therapy, contact the professionals at Park Duval Community Health Centers today.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
Communities in our name.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
You're always on time.
Because we serve the community.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
Park Duval Community Health Center, providing quality health care, one person, one family, one neighborhood at a time.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here for them.
Park Duval Community Health is right here for your children's primary care. At Park Duval Community Health Center, our team of highly dedicated pediatric physicians administers state-of-the-art care right here, every day. Because serving the community is more than part of our name, it's our mission. Park Duval Community Health Center, providing quality health care, one person, one family, one neighborhood at a time.
So, spirit?
Yeah.
Very spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely. I trust God
faith,
for all of it.
Because to go through what you went through and survive and doing what you're doing now, it's a miracle.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Because I tried to mess up everything. I mean, I ain't lying. I mean, I felt like I was on a mission, Doc. I mean, I was on a mission. Like I was taking some chances, risks, like when selling drugs and doing the stuff I was doing, the places I put myself in, the people I was messing with, the things
I often believe God uses people like me and you, take us through trials and tribulations so that we do have a story to tell, so that we can relate to people, so we can educate, and raise kids.
Yeah. And
not only that, build community. So let's transition to AMP and how this got started. And you have a fascinating story, so
yeah, I mean, it kind of came out of that same situation with my son. So AMP didn't. So when I got custody of my son, I'm like we were like at the apartment and we're watching this movie, and I'm laying on the couch and I'm looking at him watching the movie, and I started panicking. I was like, wait a minute, how am I gonna do this by myself? Like how do I raise this son? He's 11-year-old, this young man. And I asked him, well, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? My man said, he told me later, he said, I asked that question because I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't get to watch the rest of that movie. But what he said was, I want to be a record producer and I want to own my recording studio. So fast forward, I ended up building a recording studio to help a friend out. Because I tell people, like I'm referred to as a serial entrepreneur, I really enjoy starting businesses. I love the idea of building it, growing it, making it work, be successful, like all that. So I've been able to do that. And I tell people, like my past taught me that. Like in the things that I did before, even though they weren't like the legal things, I dealt with the same stuff. Right. Inventory and personnel and risk assessments.
People do not understand how you can make that transition.
Right. Or by God's grace, I made that. You know what I'm saying?
But it's business.
Yeah, it's business. And so, anyway, I was trying to say, I'm gonna start this. I didn't even know what business I was gonna do. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something. And I decided to do a recording studio. So I started Level 7 Recording Studio. And I told my guy, I was like, hey, look, when we're not using it to make money for your program, because all I wanted was like, you keep all the profits, I'll just run the business and I'll keep the money to run the business. I want kids to be able to come in and use it, when we're not using it to make money for you. And not long after that, Mayor Fisher had asked for, they would have some problems with kids running the streets and being like, doing crazy stuff. And I say this all the time. I don't believe the kids are bad. I don't. And people can argue that all day. I think kids are misguided. If you don't give them something positive and productive to do, then they'll do what they do because they're kids, right? They're gonna find something to do.
I firmly believe
you gotta give some direction. But so anyway, Mayor Fisher wanted to come up with some programs, and the name AMP popped in my head, and I literally in 3 days, I came up with the name Academy of Music Production, Education, and Development. I went home. I was actually guarding for my sister at the time. She had a stroke, and I was driving to Indianapolis. Came up with the name. I came back home that night because I do graphic design. I designed the logo. The next day, I built the website because I do website design.
Right.
And on that Friday, it was a Wednesday, Thursday, and on Friday, I called the IRS and got a tax ID.
Go ahead.
Ordered banners, all this stuff for the Festival of Face, where we were going to launch this thing that I had no idea what it was, right? This music program, and I really, honestly, did not expect kids to jump in.
Right.
We had a line of kids at this table trying to sign up for a camp that did not exist.
well, first of all, they have never heard of that in the West End, period.
Right. No, because it was on paper.
It was right.
It was on paper. You had never heard of it, but based on what we had brochures and all that. I had in my mind, I had it built.
Right.
Because like I said, I love starting businesses.
Right.
So the one thing I can say for me is that anytime and I think this is a blessing that God gave me, is like, and I tell people it's not always the case for every business I see or every idea that somebody tells me, but I've been blessed to be able to see beyond where it is now. Mm-hmm. Like in my mind, I can see your business 5-10 years from now. Like I literally can see all the things that is happening. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did with every business I've had, is that I was able to see what I wanted to do. So when I showed up, it looked like it had been around for a long time. If you go to the website, you're gonna find a website. If you go ask a card, I got the cards, I got brochures, I got all that. Sign these kids up. The very first camp we had, the Preservation Hall Jazz Band shows up. They came in town for a concert, found out about what we were doing, and drove their bus to the building, did a second line into the building, right? The second camp we did, because the kids were like, can we do this again? Like, of course, we did a second camp. Janelle Monáe and Wonderland show up for the second camp.
Wow.
And we literally been friends with them since then. Like, I like to tell this story just recently. She just came out with the movie Glass Onion.
Right.
And we actually saw the movie just recently with her. Like, me and my daughter.
So, walk us inside. What does the inside of your building look like when you walk in?
Which one? Because we have several now.
Let's go to the main one, the recording studio.
So yeah, we have 2 locations with recording studios, but the main campus, the very first one we have is at Greenwood. It's still there.
Okay.
When you walk into the building, there's so it's called the Academy of Music Production, Education, and Development. We're in the process of changing the name because of all the other things that we added to it. So now we have a Technology Workforce Development program, and we also have a Business Incubator. But when you walk in, we run it like a school.
Okay.
So kids, there's a schedule Monday through Thursday of classes that are like hour-long classes, 30-minute classes, and the kids sign up for whatever classes they want.
Okay.
And they come into the building, there's a kiosk there, they have to sign in for their class. Mm-hmm. They wait for their class, they go take their class, and they're supposed to go home, but they usually don't. Right. Kind of hang out, which is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Right now, it's fine. And so then they go take their class, but we teach every single thing that you can think of that has anything to do with music. We're talking about all the instruments, music production, recording studio, writing contracts, graphic design, anything that you can think of that has anything to do with music, we teach.
At what age?
8 to 18.
Okay, so literally at 8 years old.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what's interesting to me is, and that's not a surprise, but people don't understand how well and I've said this all the time, is like when you give, and I say this about just black folks in general, like you give them the things that they need to be successful, they will be successful because it's already there.
Right.
Like I've told people this for years, is that we don't take credit for what you did. We take credit for providing the resources to do what we knew you already could do.
Right. You provide the resources and opportunity.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, when you in the urban settings, when you go to high school, say for instance, you lack the resources, right? Or middle school, elementary, there's lack of books, right? Then they don't teach you about culture.
Right.
So you're missing those elements. So when you think about it, the reason, you don't see a lot of students coming out of urban areas going to Harvard
Yeah.
It's because they wasn't taught on that level. They ain't had the resources or the opportunity.
Yeah. I think they always had the ability, though.
Oh, the ability always is there.
Yeah, the ability is there, man. I mean, we've got kids that are selling music on iTunes and Spotify and you know, Apple Music and all, you know, all kinds of stuff, right? They're doing shows. And these are young kids. These are kids, like I say, 8 to 18. These are like older kids. They know how to, they're write, because they're not allowed to like sample music. I mean, they can sample, but they're not allowed to like still like buy beats and stuff like that. They create their own music, they have to write their own lyrics, they record their own music. They learn, like kids have come in and learned piano, then come back and learn drums and then guitar. And then we also track their grades, behavior, and attendance through a partnership with JCPS and some of the Indiana schools, because we have kids that come from Indiana over here. But that's how we show the whole, and then the other thing too is that we tell them, like the biggest thing is like the love and the mentorship, right? Because the truth is that the music, and I tell kids this, I say this so it's not a secret joke, but it's like I tell them, the trick is, the music is just to get you in the building.
Right.
The goal is to make you more confident, to make you believe in yourself more. That's what the goal is. Because I tell people, like, nobody really cares, if we're being honest, nobody really cares that our kids learn to play music.
Right.
What they care about is what happens when they do.
Right.
And what happens when they do is, for us, is that they're more confident, they're less likely to go out here doing crazy stuff, because when you teach a kid that if you start something, you can finish it, and you actually end up with something in your hand, that's the difference between a lot of programs where they just come in and get them tired and send them home. Like these kids come day after day. We're talking about kids that are in the street, like there's been, you know, little gang, little numbers, like they come in every day because this is what they want to do versus that. Because it was always the case. They always wanted to do something else versus that, but they didn't have anything productive enough to do it.
So it gives them a space, not only to figure out a craft, but to figure out they have a passion for something, and it takes them away from idle time. You know, playing in the streets. So, and it's a safe environment to do it. What percentage of kids, if you know, have went on to do something successful in terms of the music industry?
I mean, a lot of them are. I mean, I would say maybe 15 or 20% of them, because that's one thing that we clearly recognize is that the majority of our kids aren't going to go into the music business.
Right.
And if we're being honest, that's not really our goal. But again, it's not a bait and switch.
Right.
It's not like we say, okay, because we have the top of the line equipment. We have the best instructors that are actually out there performing themselves and doing stuff themselves, right? So you get the best. But the truth is what we're really trying to get you to understand is that you can do anything you want to do if you're willing to start it and finish it, right? And so when you talk about like the kids, like we have a 95% graduation rate, 100% graduation rate, and then about a 95% college graduation rate. Like not like that many of the kids go on to college and actually get through college.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? Good. But every kid, short of the kids, and sadly, short of the kids that end up dying. I mean, we had a couple of those, like a couple of situations where kids got shot or whatever, and they didn't make it. They didn't live. But all the other kids have graduated. We haven't had any kids that didn't graduate high school.
Okay. Talk a little bit about your business incubator, because it's getting a lot of buzz nowadays.
It's a year-long program, man, that I came up with in 2020, and the height of the pandemic was April of 2020. Just really mad, man. Just really upset about like the state of, Louisville and how blacks, so here's the number, like 22 at that time anyway. 22% of Louisville was black, right? It's 22% of Louisville was black. Right. Only 0.08% of the businesses were black owned, with an average income of $25,000 a year. I'm like, that's crazy, man. That doesn't make sense. And I didn't even want to believe it. But like,
you believe it?
Yeah, no, it's true, right?
It's true.
And when I tell people sometimes, like, nah, that can't be. I said, look, you're thinking about like the one business, black business, or the few black businesses that are really doing well.
Right.
And think about it. If they weren't doing as well as they're doing, the number would be worse.
Right.
It would be less than that. But nationally, it's only, I think, 35,000, whatever. So I'm sitting there just really salty about the whole thing, just trying to understand, because I know. You look at like Black Wall Street, like and right here in Russell, right, and all the thriving businesses that existed back in the day, and some that still do, like existed back in the day, and how well they did. I know we got the ability to do it. So what's going on, right?
Right.
And so I started writing this paper, I was just really just mad. I wasn't writing the paper for any reason other than just to get the stuff on my chest. And the question I asked myself is, what do I wish I had when I started my businesses, before?
Right.
And so it was like access to fair capital, the education that builds the foundation, right? That's to make it generational. We have a wealth strategy as part of the program that we have now.
Okay.
And one of the things she says in her course is it takes 3 generations to build wealth and only 1 generation to tear it down. And it gets torn down because the foundational pieces that are not there. The understanding of accounting, the understanding of entrepreneurship, pricing strategies, all those things are not there.
Right.
The other one was access to reliable networks. And I'm not saying access to white folks. I'm saying access to reliable networks within your community, people that can consistently support you, right? And in a significant way, right? And so I'm writing this paper, and it's like 5 pages, then it's like 10 pages, and it's like, then I sent it out to some friends. It was like, hey, and get this, I didn't send it out looking for funding at all, because I wasn't even there yet.
Right.
I was like, okay, I want you to tell me what's wrong with it, punch holes in it, but fill the holes back up.
Right.
What I found out they were doing, though, is they were sending it to other people. And so I get a call from a friend of mine who says, hey, man, Rockefeller Foundation saw the document that you wrote. At this point, it's about 15 pages long. He said, saw the document that you wrote. They would want to know if you'd like to talk to them about it. They like to, invest in that, in what you're trying to do. And so I talked to them. Then Yum Brands called. They initially called and said they would give me $250,000. They came back and said, can we do 5? By the end, like in 9 months, I'd raised over $3 million for this incubator.
Right.
And the incubator gives you every single thing that you need to run your business for an entire year. We're talking about seed capital for like equipment or personnel. What we call entrepreneurial support or the rich uncle. If your car breaks down, if your LG&E bill is too high and you can't pay it, we got cash.
Okay.
We got classes at universities and colleges, Wharton School of Business, University of Virginia, University of Illinois, and all those things I just talked about, understanding pricing strategies and all the foundational stuff, right? We have mental health counseling, because I know in all the years I've been in business, it's trauma. And it's trauma we don't even realize we have. So we have a mental health counselor that actually they have full access to whatever they want. We don't track it. If you want to see them every day, you can see them every day.
Okay.
They have an accountant on that does accounting for them for a full year. Because I tell them, you're not an accountant.
Right.
You mess the money up, and I've been victim to that. You mess the money up, it just multiplies.
It just spirals.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so what I want you to do is understand that accountant, though.
Right.
So you got to study that piece so you can understand what your accountant do. Access to legal. So any contracts or anything that you do, like in your business, how your business structure is set up, you got that. So marketing, graphic design, anything you can think of and we bring professionals in. They meet every week. They meet every Thursday for 2 hours, and we bring professionals in to talk to them about different aspects of business, right? So everything that you can think of, we bringing them for an entire year. Even access to capital. So like the other thing is like getting them bankable, if you will, like getting them ready so that they can have their books together and they can understand. Here's one of the things that happens a lot of times, especially with our black businesses, and we fight against this regularly, right? I try to get them to understand, ask for what you need, not for what you think people will give you.
Right.
Because the problem with that is when it doesn't work, they're not going to blame the money.
Right.
They're not going to say, oh, well, my guy, Dr. Jett, he just didn't have enough money. They're going to say, he told me what he needed, or at least I thought he told me what he needed, and then he failed.
Right.
He don't know what he's doing.
Right.
And when you look at banking, the systematic racism that exists in banking, my skin color is a risk.
Right.
I walk through the door. I had somebody say something to me one time, and they thought they were sort of giving me a compliment, but it's like, that backhanded compliment, and they don't realize how ignorant it is when they said it. They said to me, I'm really surprised at your business acumen. I'm like, why are you surprised? Why are you surprised?
Yeah.
But you get it, and you go right past it.
You walk in the bank, your bank loan in default. Just by merely walking in the door.
Just walking through the door. To this day, and this, I don't say this because I think it's wrong, but to this day, of all the businesses I've had and ones I still have, I've never borrowed money from a bank for my business.
That's amazing.
Never.
That's amazing.
And not because I couldn't, because I just didn't feel like because
right.
And this ain't stuff Dave making up.
Right.
You and a white man with the exact same plan as you have, the exact same credentials, all the things, right? Walks into a bank and says, okay, I need $500,000. He gonna probably get his 5,000 or close to it. He gonna get it at a good rate. You're gonna get maybe your 5,000, probably not 500,000. You're probably not gonna get it. You're not gonna get what you asked for, and you probably ain't gonna get it at a good rate.
Right.
That's been proven.
That's been proven.
This episode of CEO Live Talks is brought to you by Park National Bank. Pay with confidence. Your Park debit card is the fast, safe, smart way to pay this holiday season. Get more details online at parknationalbank.com.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
Communities in our name.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
You're always on time.
Because we serve the community.
My Park Duval Community Health Center is right here.
Park Duval Community Health Center, providing quality health care, one person, one family, one neighborhood at a time.
At Park Duval, we offer a variety of services for behavioral health needs, such as therapy, medication management, case management, and we also have community health workers. Here at Park Duval Community Health Center, in our behavioral health department, we provide you with the tools to help improve your life and your mental health. If you or someone you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide, please don't hesitate to give the Suicide Prevention Hotline a call. This could save your life or someone else's life.
So, I've been rolling through my mind as you've been talking about the business incubation, and I'm curious, like, how do you select people to be in the program?
It's hard, Doc.
Because I'm like, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, have a business. So what is the criteria?
It's hard. It's and it's heartbreaking, really, because you're talking about, like, we had a waiting list of over 900 businesses.
Wow.
Right. And what I say about that is they didn't just pop up.
Right.
They just had nowhere to go before.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like you look at these co-working spaces and these, quote unquote incubators that exist now, and not to throw shade on anybody, but like, as a black business owner, I don't just need like a really pretty place to work. I need capital and education and all these other things. And so it's hard. So 900 on the waiting list. We took 136 applications, right? So and literally we released the link on a Monday around noon. It was filled by noon the next day.
Good grief.
I mean, it went like quick. And then you have a first interview, right? And then you make it to the second interview, and then we finally narrow it down to 30. We narrowed down to 36 businesses.
Okay. So how do you make the cut? Because you got 100 and
yeah. So one of the things that's interesting, like what I try to get people to understand, and people don't always get this, is that it's not a competition.
Right.
What you do, and I can tell anybody who wants to hear this, like the best way to get into the incubator is to come in and help us to understand how we can help you.
Okay.
Right? Don't come in and try to prove anything to us. Don't try to prove to us that you're this, because we believe that one of the things that inspired me to do this was I realized that, and it's still the case, right, to a degree, right, there's no such thing as a black business startup community, right. Which means that I can have an idea on a napkin, walk into a bank and say, I got this great idea, here it is, give me money for it.
Right.
That doesn't exist.
Right.
So I wanted that opportunity for like somebody that had an idea that had done nothing with that idea, but had an idea and had understood how that thing might make money, to a person that had been in business 10 years.
Okay.
Right? But just still struggling on how to be profitable.
Okay.
And so there's nobody, it's not like, okay, if you've been in business longer and you've made some money and this person has that they don't get in, that's not fair.
Right.
Because that doesn't build the community.
So it's almost like Shark Tank in a sense.
Yeah.
Like you gotta have at least an idea, and sort of like, how you have started your business, you have a vision, you can see fast forward. But you also got to understand the need that you have.
Yes.
Right? And you got to have a little bit of business acumen.
Well, no, so yes and no.
Okay.
And I say that because that's the issue. That's why you're there. Right. That's what we're trying to give you. We're trying to get you, because you'll have instinctively, right, people, especially the black folks I know, they know how to, like I've been making money since I was 12.
Right.
So instinctively you know.
Right.
But when you're talking about running a business, it's not like a hustle. Like that's the thing. It's not like going out here hustling, right? It's not the same. There's different rules and things that because you think about a hustle, really, it's like I know, like say you were talking about hit a good lick, right?
Right.
Well, you realize you ain't constantly hitting licks.
Right.
Like sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't.
Right.
That's not how business should work.
Right.
It should be something consistent, and the way it's consistent is when you have all those things that you need that we want to provide for you to be consistent. Because we're talking about generational wealth.
Right.
We're talking about how do we create businesses that your kids can then take over, your family can take over.
So you're setting a legacy.
Right, and that requires like you learning those things that you don't know. Like you'd be surprised, and maybe not, of how many people really don't understand accounting.
Right.
Right? They know they don't say they don't know math. They know math.
Right.
Right. I know how to add.
Math is different than accounting.
Math is different than accounting. Like when you talk about like whether I have enough to be successful, like when you're talking about doing a 5-year, 10-year projection, right, on your business, like how do you do that? Like people don't even think about that.
Right.
I tell people, the thing that bothers me the most a lot of times about when you see black folks and they talk about like the business, how the business, the thinking is if I could just get in, I'll be good, and that's never true.
So you have a unique perspective because to start your business, at some point you had to hit rock bottom, right? And I don't know how long you struggled, but you're able to provide insight to people on how to be successful. Because everybody thinks, I want to start this business, and they have no rationale on how to project out.
Yeah.
So what added advice do you give to entrepreneurs that want to start a business?
Know the numbers. Bottom line, man, that's like you want to do all this stuff. You want to sell, and that's cool. You want to do all that stuff. But you got, like right now, of all the businesses I have, you ask me the numbers on any one of them. And that's not I'm no savant or no genius or nothing. But I know how important it is to know when I'm making money and when I'm not. Okay. With every decision, you have to make decisions, and you have to know within that decision, right, whether I'm going to make money or not. Right. And that's what happens because people are afraid of the numbers. Right. Like that's the biggest struggle that most people have in business is you're afraid to just say. Because here's the thing: I remember talking to a young lady. I said, put together a budget that works. The budget is like this is what your goal is. This is what you're trying to get. Right. Put together a budget and don't hold back. She came to me. She goes, well, Mr. Dave, I don't know, man. This budget is getting kind of big. I said, it is what it is, though. Right. Right. It's like, for example, like for my nonprofit, it's like I knew that I want to pay somebody $90,000 or $100,000 for a position, right? I didn't have the money for that, but it's in my budget, right? Because now I don't know what to work for. Because when I'm looking at what revenue I create, I need to know where I'm trying to get to, and I'm trying to get to where I'm sustainable, not just get by, because that never works. Right. Like that's why, because what happened, we got restaurants now where they started out and it's like, well, if I get enough to get this thing open up, I get me a brick and mortar, and I'll be fine. And then you hit that dip. And you're like, what do I do? You ain't got no money in reserve. Right. You didn't even plan for it. You don't. Right. What do you do? Like, how do you? Like when you talk about marketing, because people think this, and it's interesting that people think, if I just had somebody to market my business, I'd be good. No, right. Because you don't even know who you are marketing to. Right.
It takes a lot more. I've been running business, government side, and nonprofit for years, and I've sat on boards, and I'm a numbers guy anyway.
Dude.
By being an epidemiologist and run a business, and I'm always projecting out. Being in healthcare, which is always tricky, right. But I'm pushing the envelope on marketing aspect. I'm pushing my director of marketing, Mr. Juan Lambert.
That's right.
Because we have to, number one, not just look at Medicaid, Medicare, but look at commercial insurance, because the numbers with Medicaid enrollment will drop. So you have to project out. So now, what do I do? So there's interesting advice that you would give to somebody. I have a dying question. And please forgive me.
Nice.
Because you're doing this in Louisville, right? And Gary, Indiana needs you.
Yeah. I'm fully aware.
And this can be duplicated.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's the plan, though.
Okay.
Again,
right.
That's the plan. So I've actually, so I have a niece actually that runs a nonprofit in Gary. And so we've actually already talked about it. So this is the thing, is like, when I told you earlier, like I have this this thing that God gave me to allow me to see like what that is like, years from now. when I first created this program, when I first came up with this idea, my goal was to make this not just, because what we're talking about is not unique, like poverty and violence, like all this stuff is not unique to Louisville. I realized that this exists, everywhere you go, there's this, right? And so how do we create this and how do we box this up to make, because I've been asked to like take it to other places, but like we even hired like the University of Louisville, Commonwealth Institute of Kentucky to do evaluations on our program.
Okay.
We have evaluators so we can pack, we have a playbook for both the students and for the people that are running the program.
Right.
Because I'm trying to create something that I can then duplicate and send to other places, because this is not just about me. I tell people all the time, like there's no way, like I was taught as a young person, right? It won't come through you if it can't go through you. God doesn't bless just me.
Right.
Right? So like like all the stuff that we receive and all the things we're able to do ain't about Dave. Dave don't need another thing, right? I'm good. Like what about everybody else? And that's the blessing that I have, is I get to wake up every day with that on my mind. Like how do I make it better for the people around me?
And I think myself as a ministry of health, and and I love being around people. So I've been called the people's champ.
There you go. I feel
But I'm always looking for models that I could take to other cities, because I know the plight of Chicago, Atlanta, New York, just places around Gary, and Louisville. And there's people everywhere in the U.S. in poverty.
For the same reason.
For the same reason. And, you know, what's always astonishing to me is we send so much money abroad, but we don't take care of home.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you. What, you know, one of my last things is, how do we duplicate you?
Well, let me say this real quick, my thoughts on that, because one of the things I think that if I give one more bit of advice is, and I tell my staff this, I tell my people, the people that work for us, don't worry about what's to the left and right of you, what's in front of and behind you.
Right.
Do what you're gonna do. Because if you get caught up in those other things, it distracts you.
Right.
And it'll break you, it'll tear you apart. Like if I'm worried about what somebody else doing over there with their money, like I tell people, if I apply for a grant and I don't get it, I ain't mad at you, that's your money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not worried about that. If so-and-so gets this or whatever, God bless them. Like that's good, I ain't worried about that. When we work with the young kids and the parents don't show up, but they eventually do, right? When initially they don't, because they like, this is just another thing that it ain't nothing. We can't be worried about what they do or don't do.
Right. You have to worry about your own house.
So yeah, I mean, as far as, I don't know that you need to duplicate me as much as we need to get away from this thing where we vilify our people, right? Like we vilify our kids and we talk about how messed up they are. We talk about how messed up the parents are. Mm-hmm. And if we just stop doing that, we just, like I said, don't worry about what's in front of you, behind you, to the left and right of you, and focus on what your part in that is. Because God gave you something to do. This is what he gave me. Right. And so that's what I focus on. And so that's what gets there. So the sort of movement that you've seen and the progress that we made, we just bought a building at 25th and Broadway, 40,000 square foot building. We're going to build an 18,000 square foot technology training center. All those things happen because I ain't distracted.
Right.
I ain't worried about what everybody else doing.
Right. Well, the one thing when I say duplicate you, because you're unique.
I pray. Yeah.
Right. But the knowledge that you have does the world no good if you don't pass it down.
That's right, absolutely.
And so, you know, you're doing that. And that's the duplication of effort. If you don't pass that down, then the world is lost. Because we have to be able to share that knowledge that we've gained through years and the struggle and tell a story, which you have done today.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, because I've raised kids on my own as a single father, had full custody. So, you know, from one black man to another, thank you. And thank you for tuning in to the show today. Hopefully you've been entertained and got some useful information. And please look up Mr. Dave Christopher's website, AMP, and look at all the wonderful things he's doing. Thank you and have a great weekend.